last week. So I was like, trying to do that.
I'm more worried about
which areas to stay with.
Non-single selectors on what the song is.
And then
how much
just
people
my
are going to be out there.
I came back around.
That's something bigger thing to worry about. Don't worry about physics and that stuff. Worry about that stuff.
All right, welcome everyone to Civil AI Explorers. I'm Mike Powers, and some of you know Owen Zanal, and we're the co-organizers, or at least initial organizers for now. In a moment, I'll set the stage a little bit for what Owen and I have discussed about sort of in terms of our vision for this group, as a prelude to the organizing discussion that we'll have after Owen's talk here in a moment. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Studio X, who's graciously provided a space for our meeting. Studio X provides a flexible shared office environment with options for open workspaces, dedicated desks, and private offices. The space fosters a collaborative community through weekly events and mixers, featuring a warm industrial atmosphere with ample natural light. Amenities include high-speed internet, soundproof phone booths, conference rooms, and premium coffee. Studio X is staffed by a community manager on weekdays and provides 24/7 access for members. And we have James with Studio X, so we can thank him.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Thank you everyone for organizing this. It's always like such a pleasure for me. In fact, this time I only learned about it after the fact because Greg Kelly, who many of you probably know, who really is the heartbeat of this place, interfaced with you guys, and this just came about. And I'm super excited that it's happening here, that we can be a little piece of that action, and I really hope that it grows and you guys get traction on some interesting conversations, and who knows, maybe some startups. So thank you both, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Okay, the world of AI, and generative AI in particular, as we all know, is moving incredibly quickly. There are new announcements, tools, techniques, and capabilities weekly, if not daily, and there's an amazing fire hose of information to keep up with right now. So we want to collaborate with other folks who are trying to keep up with these developments, and also in particular with a focus on putting the developments into use with hands-on applications. Personally, I want to understand the capabilities and techniques for developing applications on top of foundation models, or with the new Gen AI capabilities in general. What I've been learning is that the patterns, approaches, architectures are different because the LLM models are generally not deterministic. So there's kind of new paradigms for handling that, and it's something I want to understand and practice and develop skills with. Other people might want to focus more on automation for personal use or professional use to increase capabilities or multiply personal productivity. So as we kind of go forward, we have a couple of great speakers lined up for the first few meetups, the first of which is going to be Owen Zanal today, who I'll introduce in a moment. But we really want this to be more of a many-to-many model instead of a kind of a one-to-many speaker series. There's several of those series already in Charlottesville, and some of these talks will fit into that. We want to use the talks as I think that as sort of an anchor point to kind of anchor around, and then have other activities either in meetings with the talks or as sort of possible side quests. And that's something we'll talk about after Owen's talk. So that might mean things like demo days where we share things that we're doing, working on hands-on, and get kind of feedback and ideas. It might be book clubs where we kind of in a structured way, address some important things to keep track of. It might be a weekly Anthropic blog post. Hey, let's all read this blog post this week and then discuss it. That'll be on the agenda for next time. Or just some other interesting announcement that you want to bring to the table and discuss. Again, all of us can read all these things individually, but if, hey, I read this today, or yesterday, blog post by OpenAI about their new agent development framework. Okay, what does that mean? How does it work? What does it really mean? How does that compare to the Anthropic blog post about agents? I can figure out myself, but I'd love to hear other people's takes on that sort of thing, and that's the kind of activity that I have doing. Okay, so with that kind of setup, after Owen's talk, we'll put all of that on the table and kind of get feedback from the group and see what consensus we can come to in terms of scope or cadence, frequency, and that sort of thing for this meetup. Today's sort of a definitional meeting. It's great that we have 20 people here, 30 people signed up, 20 came, which is actually that's like a pretty good ratio. And we really want these meetings to be open to everyone who wants to learn and is able to learn and benefit. But if it also, for me personally, if it ends up being a fewer number of people, or if there's subgroups with fewer people who are actually kind of actively collaborating back and forth, that worked well for me as well. So, okay, a couple of logistic notes. There is a Seville AI Explorer's website, which is just sort of a landing page, but mostly we will announce sort of in-person meetings through Meetup, which you all have seen, I guess, because you're here. And we'll also coordinate via Seville Slack. So and there's a hashtag Seville AI Explorers channel within Seville Slack. So if if you're not part of Seville Slack, or you have to be getting an invitation, but there's if you'll hold that up in the back, there's a sign-up sheet, put your name and email down there, and we'll make sure you get invited. And then once you're in there from Slack, you can go to the Seville AI Explorers channel, and that's kind of where our main communication, or at least our interactive communication forum will be. And I think that is it for logistics or intros. With that in mind, any kind of brief comments, questions, or thoughts before we start with Owen's presentation? Was there something here?
My first time here. Where's the bathroom?
You go out there and all the way to the back left corner.
Gotcha. Thank you. Just wanted to know.
Subject matter expert. You can also tell you the Wi-Fi password.
Oh yeah, that too. On the side. I'll get it.
Okay. Anything else? Just kind of in terms of intros. Great. Okay. Well, today we have a talk by Owen Zanal, and just to introduce him more formally, Owen Zanal is a technologist with an insatiable curiosity. He enjoys learning and sharing with others. He has over 20 years of web technology experience, and he currently works as a senior DevOps engineer for Game Changer, a mobile app for managing and streaming youth sporting events. So, thanks to Owen for speaking tonight.
I'm assuming they can share.
Alright. Fireside, just need the fireside. Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's look. Sure, got connectivity here. Alright. Yeah, so this is kind of like a ad hoc presentation. I'm pretty much just gonna set a timer here for like 30 minutes, and I got a slide deck kind of stacked full of some of the things I've done with AI. I feel like I've been kind of a long time AI explorer. So I figure I'll go through some of the things I've done with AI tooling. Some of it's programming based, some of it's just using tools and cobbling things together. Okay. So I call it a practical AI in practice, and kind of the theme of the group is just like using these tools to do stuff, and you don't have to be a technical person. So one of the very first experiences that I've had with this was even before kind of generative AI. It was 2020. I was working for a company, and we had these hackathons, and the hackathon was to create art, like printed art, for the walls that go around it. And at that point in time, the kind of style transfer AIs, like technique, was getting a lot of popularity. So we had formed a small group and found a website where you just upload photos and have it stylize the photo. And later on, after that company, I left that company, I took the pictures and created this like virtual gallery for them. Hopefully it'll work. Course demo. Yep. And so the idea is that this was not AI generated or anything. This was all manually generated, but the idea was to create this virtual gallery so you can kind of come here and see these, photos like flaming shore. You can see the kind of strange hallucination artifacts of the earlier image AIs kind of created. So we basically just took photos, ran it through this website, reran it through, maybe put it back through Photoshop to kind of style, clean up a bit. And then ultimately voted on these, and the ones that got the highest votes were printed. So there are a few limited prints around, maybe with some money, since there are not very many of them. So that was one of the first experiences I had, and kind of set the stage for my curiosity going forward. So in 2023, ChatGPT came out, and I came across this Twitter post. It's like I use ChatGPT and create a children's book and had, and illustrate it. And I was like, okay, that's a great idea. Christmas was just around the corner, and my daughter was doing ballet lessons at the time. She has this stuffed giraffe named Gerald. So I thought it'd be a really cute story to kind of create a story where Isabella teaches Gerald the Nutcracker. So one-shot prompt, like basically, curly blonde-haired girl teaches her pet giraffe Gerald the Nutcracker ballet, and he's not a very good dancer. So this is, and then I took each one of the passages and went into Midjourney. At that point in time, it just hit version V4, and the quality had really come up as far as the quality of the pictures. And just, iterated on the prompt, the image, text to image prompt. You can see that these early, these early versions of text to image prompts have these strange artifacts here, especially with hands and appendages. But overall, the style is pretty beautiful. Missing some legs there. Whatever, it's, daughter didn't notice, double teeth. So it serves as an interesting artifact of what AI was capable at that point in time, right? And I'll show some more examples going forward. So Mother's Day surprise, I started doing these like videos for my wife for Mother's Day, and one of the first ones was using ChatGPT to write the script, and then had my daughter act out with dolls in front of Barbie dolls in front of a green screen, and then use Midjourney for the backgrounds to generate background images. So you can kind of see here, it's super silly. I won't show you the whole thing, but she kind of. I won't bore you with the whole thing. I'll share a link for you, you can watch it on your own. But the script, she kind of loosely followed it, and we had to kind of improvise a little bit. She got bored towards the end, and I had to fill in for her to finish it. But it came together, and it was a viral hit in our small social circle of friends online. This was not a massive hit outside of that, but got a lot of fun. We had fun with that one. So Smile So Bright was, I think, next Mother's Day. At that point in time, Sono came out and was doing song generation, really good quality song generation. Midjourney for the images. And this was a song about our cat Slinky, who terrorizes my wife during the night and ruins Mother's Day basically for her. And then took those images into Runway ML, which would animate them, and put that together into a video. Oh, I also used yeah, I also used superimposed my face on like 80s pop stars in my daughter's face and lip synced it. Again, really catchy. I know you're all that's a great girl now.
That didn't go viral?
In our social circle, it went pretty well. You know, got a lot of likes. I will say that much. Yeah, so that was that one. And that was another fun one. So in 2024, I came back around. Kind of when ChatGPT came out, there was a bunch of like SDKs and stuff, all trying to use LLMs in various ways. And it just wasn't clear what kind of the patterns were for interacting with LLMs outside of just like kind of the chat completion API. There was like lane chain, which was like an abstraction on all this stuff that just kind of just wasn't sure where things were going, and couldn't really apply it to work at that point in time due to privacy concerns, and just in general trying to get from a prototype to production with models is just a very difficult process. And heard a bunch of horror stories of companies jumping on the bandwagon and creating chatbots, and then people messing with them and getting discounts and all sorts of terrible reactions out of them that was just bad press. So couldn't really apply LMs to work quite yet, but when 2024 came around, I had some free time, and I created this basically a wrapper around a library called LLM, which takes every possible provider and makes it all look like the chat completions API. So it's all standardizes across all the API providers, and turns that into a CLI tool that you can interact with in the Bash terminal. Which other ways of doing it were kind of like using notebooks and using the UIs and some other interfaces, but where all my important context is since I'm kind of a DevOps engineer by trade, all the important context is within the terminal for me. So I wanted something that was native to that, and it wasn't, I didn't really go too hard, but there wasn't anything that quite fit what I wanted. So the idea with enhance here. Let's see if we really go quite. All right. We can kind of see that well enough, right? Mm-hmm. Close enough. All right, so the idea with CLM is like you can say like CLM GPT for high, right? How can this write a story about a dog and a cat, right? And then because it's all Bash based, you can say summarize. Because it takes standard in or input through. So basically you interact with any kind of tooling that's within the terminal.
It's clever. Very cool.
Well, hopefully it's move faster, but anyway. So with this you can start building scripts. Summarization of the story. So in the examples here are all sorts of things you can do with it. So you can create like let's see if we can get it. It's probably okay, right? So you can create a simple chat loop with this as well. So I think you can kind of create pretty much anything and use a lot of patterns that are emerging. For example, chat, basic, you today. Right. So it persists this in this, there's a .clm directory So we persist this here. So we can share this across commands. You can also create these what they call systems, which define in this case, ChatGPT 4.0, so you define the model, the temperature, the provider. You can use Claude, you can use Gemini, you can use Grok. You can chain them together with your bash pipes. That was kind of a way to explore these patterns that are kind of emerging with LLMs of chaining and prompting without too much abstraction on top of it in a way that works really well in the terminal. So, yeah, that's one example there, using this. If you look through the examples, there's all sorts of patterns of creating, RAG pipelines and other things with it as well. So one of the next things I did was another book, a new book called Stallabella, which was a story based on my daughter's playful habit of stalling. One day I was like, come on, Izzy. Her name's Isabella. I was like, stop being a Stallabella or something like that. I thought that was kind of a cute name and thought it would be made for a really neat book. So I had a bunch of free time. I used command line CLM to draft it and Dolly to kind of do some of the drafting, but it ended up being a lot more work tweaking the prompts from Midjourney and getting the story together, the visuals together. Then I brought those pictures and story into Runway ML, used the speech text dictation from OpenAI to narrate it and create a video from the book. So this is all on Stallabella. The book is also available on Amazon for $12.99, but I'll give it to you for free. There's a link right here. So yeah, you can see here now there's much more consistency with the characters. They're not perfect, but way more consistent than the Gerald Lawrence Nutcracker. So I put down, I documented everything that I did. Here's the video.
Parents would watch half of the news and half, and when it was time to go to school, Stella would walk as if she were in slow motion.
I won't bore you with the whole video here, but there's a GitHub repo. I used so I used command line CLM to create versions of this book. CLM also has this concept of structured outputs, so I create a list, and then I could pass that list into another program that reads the list and generates images from each one of the prompts. So it takes the story, turns it into a list of prompts, and then feeds that into another program that turns those prompts into images and writes those out to a directory. And then ultimately combines those all together by just shoving it all basically into the model and say, generate a PDF or a markdown file for it. So here's one of the versions here. So this was using Dolly, so the image consistency is all over the place, which is why I had to go to that journey to kind of really tweak everything and iterate on it. So it took a bunch of time. It was not automated, but you can get like a draft with that little program there. So look, video. Yeah, it's all documented here. Do something similar.
Question.
Yeah.
For like this project, what was your overall cost of all the credits and the tokens and getting yourself in there?
Yeah, that's probably a couple $100. I think.
That's it? Okay.
After everything was said and done. Yeah, I had to kind of iterate through Runway ML more than in the past. But the previous ones were like one shot. Like it was just too long, too expensive, and I didn't have the time or money to wait and try to iterate on it. So I was spent a bit more time in both Midjourney and running AML, going through it a couple of times to try to get a animation or image that I liked. So I tried to sell it on Amazon. It sold 14 copies so far.
You should ask what's the net cost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I figured, okay, I'll do some marketing. Let's see what happens. I'll throw $40 into an, whatever Instagram campaign. Let's see what happens.
Which gets you one ad, right?
So marketing's hard. This was the responses, which I think I'm onto something because they really got quite a bit of engagement. So there's been more than I
Good
saw.
engagement farming strategy.
Yeah. So if I was going to do this again, I would just make AI slop and get engagement for it. Profit. I think it's more like well curated AI slop, but they don't think so. I was slightly, yeah. Go ahead.
Can I ask for the societal question, but it's sort of a societal thing, did Amazon have any policies that you had to check boxes or fill out a form, or did they care about the?
Yeah, they want you to disclose how AI generated it was. I think they also have caps of how many books you can publish in a certain period of time nowadays, but I didn't hit that cap.
But in terms of the authorship of this work,
They were fine with it. I haven't pushed back.
But they did ask, it sounds like.
Yeah, they did.
And on the product listing, is that disclosed anywhere? I mean, I saw you credited as an author,
Yeah.
but did Amazon do anything?
There's a lot of conservation on copyright about this stuff.
Right.
I'm reading on it, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting. So I think there's probably gonna be some big cases that need to be
Yeah.
heard before like it gets to a conclusion. But there's a lot of discussion.
Yeah,
about
well, that's probably what I'm exploring is what, I'm aware of this issue generally, but what is Amazon doing about it right now? As part of,
Probably nothing, because they want to do what they want with their AI. So it's
Yeah.
likely they're not gonna take a stand.
That's-
Because then they're gonna have to go, oh, no, it's our guardrails,
Yeah.
not what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see anything. I did a quick search for AI. I didn't come up with anything on the page.
Probably depends too on how successful it is. If he sold like 100,000 copies in a week, somebody's gonna reach out and say, "Hey, we gotta talk about some copyright."
Yeah, so that was enlightening. In August I was laid off from my job and was going through the interview process and found myself kind of unprepared, having not interviewed in 4 years. So I dug into using AI to kind of help me with this, and what I did was I passed pretty much all the communication that I got from the recruiters or interview process and generated mock interview questions. I went through and responded to the questions myself, did not generate those, but occasionally I would generate just examples just to see like what it would look like. But in the end, they were my responses. And then fed it back through, getting feedback on my answers or feedback from various parts of the interview process. So let me see if I got it. Yeah, so DuckDuckGo is one of them. This is a little bit kind of disorganized, but yeah, one thing I did is I recorded one of the calls with the recruiter, summarized that. You know, got like mock interview questions. You see that already? Might have to take my word for it. I don't think we're going to render very well here. Basically, the idea was take the context that was coming from recruiters, feed it back through the LLM, and generate Q&As. Things I did was just like what tech was mentioned, create a list of that. Maybe I had to, better understand some of this stuff that they use. Some more interesting things that they here.
And which model did you use for this?
Probably mostly GPT for most of this. At that point in time, it was in the strongest one. I could probably just
Do you remember which version? Was it 3?
It was 4, I think, at that point.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing I used, CLM4 is to, so I basically got this context directory, so this is a cover letter, kind of call, like basically any information that I got that I thought was relevant, my resume, pre-screening questions, and then create this little program that loops through those, passes those in the CLM, and uses Assys for schema, and the schema is a graph representation of that data. Then created these JSON graph objects here, and then create a little program to concat them together into one big graph, and then use create another program to visualize that graph. So here's like all my skills, here's kind of the job requirements, I think. Here's like an interesting intersection. Yeah, so here's kind of like the site reliability engineering team and kind of the technology they use. And then there's like the overlap of what I know or what I at least said in my resume. So this is kind of interesting way to kind of extract knowledge out of this semi-structured text. I find these kind of useful in general as knowledge graphs and building these various things.
How did you feel about your interview process after this? Do you feel like this like really stepped up your game?
Yeah, I mean, game changer. I got the job for them. Definitely felt like the very first interview I had would totally bombed the technical side of it. Just was not prepared, and felt very confident in both the DuckDuckGo and Game Changer interview process. I use it at work quite often. We have a ChatGPT Enterprise Game Changer, and I use it for planning. I use a prompt that's like, help me plan this project, ask me one question at a time until you get enough context about the project to create a plan. So we'll go through and loop and ask me like one question at a time, like what's the project about, what's one of the goals, and I'll go through that until the LLMs feel like it's built up enough information to kind of generate a preliminary plan for that project. And I used this when before I got the job. I was wondering what I was going to do in my life, and one of the possible options was just to be an independent consultant. So I started preparing for that possibility. So I use ChatGPT mostly for generating this website, but I started creating these like what I call parody projects of architectures that I worked on. So one of the most recent one, I was working for an IoT platform company. So use that loop to gather the context about what technology I would want to use for an IoT platform, and use that. Once I gathered enough context, I was able to have it generate the README. I think later on I went through and had it generate the mermaid diagram of what the architecture should look like, technical aspects of it, the technology I want to use, and then generated like schema. In this case, I created like the domain objects as JSON schema objects, and all the issues that I would have to eventually do to kind of complete the project, which don't really have time right now, but if I was kind of in the consulting world, I'd probably start trying to pick these off and build out the rest of this in the free time I had between clients. So I find this is a very useful pattern. I've used this a couple different ways at work and for personal projects to kind of just bootstrap an idea and get the context together and start formulating the artifacts around that I might need to execute it. Another use case that I found is chat with books. So again, ChatGPT Enterprise. So I take a book and upload that into ChatGPT, and then go on a walk and I can have a conversation with it. Let's see if I think I have oh, no, I got it here. So I have like site reliability engineer, uploaded the first 13 chapters of that, and then go on a walk with the text-to-voice feature of ChatGPT, and ask it to give me a summary. And then from the summary, it's like, what are the key points of the chapter? And go through all the key points, and then ask them to figure out a topic that I kind of want to dive deeper on. So in this case, I just dive deeper into simulating failures and chaos engineering, and it goes through and walk my dog and listen. If there's like a point that I don't understand, I can always ask it, like, explain it better, or even dive even deeper into that subject. And then I have this, artifact here of this conversation. So we can process this in other ways, maybe create a graph of the topics or something else. So I found this is a very neat and useful way to kind of consume book content in a way that's maybe a bit more engaging than sitting there and reading it word for word. Of course, you may lose some context in this process, so you have to kind of keep that in mind, or some of the key details. So I don't think it's a complete replacement, but there's something you just want to casually kind of learn or get a sense of, and then use that to kind of dive deeper, maybe use that as go into the actual chapter and review that after the fact. So, let's see which one we left.
I've got a question on that last exercise you're doing. Did you ever have it prompt questions for you to ask, like, do you understand this, or did it do that naturally, so that your questions for the book were also prompted?
No, I haven't really asked it to prompt me questions. Or like maybe kind of like a learning kind of aspect of it, where it's like, give me like a multiple choice Q&A or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't done that, but that's definitely a good way to learn. I think I've done something similar. I was going through trying to get some like AWS certifications, and so I start with the practice questions. So I took the practice, copied the practice questions into ChatGPT and asked it to generate more practice questions, and use that to kind of hopefully learn more about, use that as a learning tool.
Yeah, the GPT-4 model was supposed to be a huge jump forward. Did you work enough between 3 and 4 to see that big, like, with things like, does it understand the questions you're asking?
Yeah.
You need to, 2 and 3, you had to teach it to understand you before you could get any value out of it. Was 4 just sort of, it sounds like 4 you just sort of like, and everything was.
Yeah, I mean, I was using 3 back. Yeah, 3 was definitely Gerald, the Nutcracker. And I was using a little bit here and there, but 4 is definitely a big step up in the quality of output that we get. And then, just kind of gravitated towards 4 for most things, or kind of switch between whatever the minier models are. They're a little bit cheaper, because I think the 4.0 stuff it's kind of pricey.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's kind of all I got. If you're getting any more questions, I can fill them now for you.
How was the accuracy with the book summaries? Did you encounter any hallucinations with the technical subjects that you were already summarizing?
Yeah, I couldn't tell. I didn't go deeper. I do know enough about the subject matter of site reliability engineering that it all seemed good. I think generally, so hallucinations kind of come by way of the model not knowing about that information. Like there's whatever, if you have like yeah, some detail, like maybe it's like an API and, you know, it doesn't know, that wasn't in this training set. If you took the page that had that API documentation, showed that in the context, the chance of hallucinating something that isn't there is less. It's not 100%, but it's certainly much better than it not having that context in its window.
So you can ask sources, so if you're using it and you want to know what it's actually producing, you can ask sources, and that it can't always give you a source, so it depends on what it is. But you can tell it, provide sources, they're gonna provide, depending on which one you're using, you'll get sources.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that using its search capability, or is
So
that
if I'm
with,
using it as just like a regular user,
yeah,
I'm logged in, I just go in to
Yeah.
ChatGPT and I say, okay, I want to find out about this, please provide sources, and it will do that. Now sometimes it can't. I've also gone in and just done really random stuff, and then I've said, where did you get this data? And then it can't tell me. So it
Yeah.
really depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Also, sometimes the sources they'll hallucinate and give you the wrong source.
yeah, so my wife's a nursing professor. Yeah, my wife's a nursing professor, and she's dealing with her students getting her uncurated AI slop where it generates sources, right? But they're not non-existent. Or she had one case where it's like this book they don't even like distribute, and it's super expensive. So it's just like, how did you afford this $1,000 book?
Maybe there's a distinction here. In this case, Owen has uploaded the whole book. So that is the source already as a context, whereas maybe in some of your use cases, it's searching the web, or you're not spoon feeding. So it's more, I think in Owen's case, summarize this information that I'm giving you up front. And so sources would, in that case, would take the form of, here's the passage I got from, or the chapter I got from, or whatever. And so it's different if you're just searching, telling, hey, search the web and find
So
stuff.
I worked with the author who did the same thing with his book.
Yeah.
And you can go in and do that, but when you try to get it to extend beyond the book,
Right.
and then try to do sort of like a cross-analysis query, if you will,
Yeah.
then it does fall apart. Even though the whole book's literally there. It just can't, you can't make some of those connections for you.
Yeah, you kind of,
ChatGPT didn't spit out, when you uploaded the entire book, it didn't spit out, hey, you're making a copy of, technically that's copyright, you know, so it just was like, cool.
Yeah, it didn't say anything. He didn't have any problems with it.
I'm sure
He's
they're
not-
trading,
But
right?
I'm
No
not.
guardrails.
Free trading data.
But he's not copying the book. He's not saying, tell me, spit the book back out. You're reformatting or
Yeah, no, I'm
summarizing.
yeah, it's
Making
a,
a cliff note.
yeah, it's, yeah.
Is this on the enterprise?
Yeah.
So do they claim that no data is?
They claim, yeah.
Yeah, to claim, yeah.
question to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you have to be careful. The way the models work, it will try to justify, basically, it will try to make the source that it predicts line up with the things that it said before. So there are some cases where it might just make up a thing and kind of attribute it back. So you have to be careful about the order in which you ask it to generate things. You generally want it to go from source to data to summary, not the other way around. Otherwise, like it will just always try to justify things.
Yeah, usually I start with each one of these conversations with a new context as well. I try to, like, I'm talking about this chapter, let's just concentrate on that and not bring another chapter into the conversation.
Sounds like problems I have.
Yeah?
Have you played with asking it about yourself?
Not really. Like, in its training set.
Well, it's the types of prompts where you know, if you sort of played on the free account for long enough on GPT 4.0, it starts to actually put things in memory if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
telling it things about yourself, and then suddenly, you know, you say, use all of our conversations and tell me, like, what are the biggest things I'm missing? Just like leave a ambiguous like that. It really is an interesting dynamic that develops.
No, I haven't used it in that kind of context. I've used it as like a like a coach in a couple cases, like a productivity coach, where it'll be like almost like a productivity timer, where I'll say like, you know, ask me again that kind of similar question prompt where it's like ask me one question at a time until you have enough context about the task that I want to complete. You know, I want to give it an hour to do, and then go off, do the tasks, and then come back and like, do a retrospect, have a retrospect, the task. Ask me how I felt I did I complete everything that I wanted to complete, you know, and then maybe from there have it suggest maybe some things I can do next time or what the next step should be. And that's been helpful. I should probably use it more, but I haven't kind of fallen into the pattern at work.
Have you hit the assistance API and done function calling?
Yeah, I've done. With CLM, I didn't actually implement ChatGPT's function calling directly. Instead, I kind of like unwrapped it. So because it has a concept of schema, I create a schema with a function.
Yep.
Which will then output, you know, a JSON representation of it, and I can pipe that into a program that will execute the function.
Yep.
And then pipe that output back into there. But I haven't used the ChatGPT's built-in function calling really well. I am interested in like model context protocols, kind of the next thing.
Yeah.
And build that into. I'm currently working on building that into CLM, so I can just kind of like specify in that YAML file like what MVC servers I want, and yeah, we'll just have those tools available to them and start chaining all sorts of like agents together into different configurations with different tool sets.
How would you characterize, like I'm trying to still formulate what I think an MCP is. Is it just a middle layer, you would say, between like, it feels like API to API.
It's just kind of like a standardization of how to communicate. Like we've been doing function calling, right? But then you gotta kind of like figure out how to communicate with that particular API's nuances of that API. It also has a couple other kind of built-in things, like it's got the tool functionality. It also has like this concept of resources and the concept of prompts. So the server can have those, and you can utilize them either, you know, invoking it, have the LM invoke it, or maybe you say like add some resource and pulls it into the context. So there's a little bit more to it. And there's also a bi-directional aspect that I haven't quite explored yet, where I can pull the context from your client into the server to do stuff with, but I haven't really seen too many examples. I'm just going to implement the tooling functionality to start with, and then we'll figure out the rest of it later. All right.
Thanks, cool stuff.
So we would like to kind of segue into, we had a great talk, some good conversation directions. What I just kind of want to, and there's a couple ways we can do this, we may just kind of go around the room or raise hands. What do you want to see out of this group going forward? We've got the nucleus of it. Again, my preference is that so MCP is a great example. It's like, hey, let's have a workshop where we all open up the docs beforehand, and then we try and make one. You know, I don't know. I have the same, maybe that what you're seeing is that my Twitter feed is full of everything says MCP. But let's kind of go around the room, and the floor is open for how frequently would you like to see town meeting? Is this format good, where it's just kind of a short talk and then maybe a second more collaborative activity? Is in person the right thing, or should it sometimes be Zoom? Floor is open. Just like to hear everyone's thoughts about where would you go.
I'll say why I'm here.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure where you should go because I haven't participated in the first before. I recently found myself just getting a and really application integration work. And I started working with someone who wrote a book about him that I used to work with, and he's like, hey, go learn this stuff. And he had all these trainings and gave me all this free training and all these really cool things. And so I was like, oh, this is really neat. And I started to get deep in the philosophy of it. And sort of, I guess what I'm looking for is just a way to not only like understand it to a depth that I can help people navigate it as a consultant, but also to a depth that I can understand what those architecture implications are in the enterprise level and how to really move the needle forward on that. Because what I see happening is large companies that have, I would say, status quo style technology stack probably are at risk of just completely crumbling and failing if they don't figure this stuff out soon. And then there's going to be someone that comes along that's leveraging these new capabilities and just knocks them out of the game entirely. So I think it's a really interesting time. So I'd say that for me. And the second thing is we have a live program that talks about all a lot of these things. It's every Friday at noon, and I can share that with anyone that wants to join in and just chat or even be on the show. It's run by the author that I was speaking of. And then I also have the ability to give out free training if anyone's interested, and I can share that link as well. So anyone that's interested, just let me know. I'm happy to do that.
Well, could you maybe put at least the weekly link in Slack?
Yeah, because like access it, but students should get it to me. Put my name on the list.
Okay, yeah.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
I'm on the show, and I kind of want to talk from a change management perspective and how do you really solve this problem because it's a big problem. But there's a lot of characters and good, fun conversations, and you can join along and chat with the conversation, and we'll talk about anything that people say as they join. And I can also share where you can get access to the training if anyone's interested, because it's like a startup, and no one's really getting paid yet, but we all want to chat and figure it out together.
What's the name of the show, of the weekly event?
It's changed names. It's now called the AI Lead Show, I believe. It was called the Dr. Brian Lambert Show, and this is the author who wrote this book. If anyone's read it, seen it. Yeah. I know him from prior consulting work, so again, it's very organic. So if anyone wants to join the party, I'd say come on in, and it also educate me because again, I didn't spend my life as a developer. I haven't coded since my first job out of college, so it's kind of fun to try to figure it all out.
I'd be interested in if your friend is interested in maybe even doing some kind of presentation in this stage as well.
Yeah, he's in
That'd be
Charlotte,
awesome.
but I can probably get him here.
I think there's also an opportunity for pure remote
Yeah.
things as well.
Absolutely. I
Yep.
love that. He has webinars as well. I mean, he's really working hard at it. And it's just interesting to kind of learn about it and figure it all out. Because I'm only like 30 days. So I'm dangerous with the data, but I'm not there yet.
Cool.
Well, one thing I'll throw out, so I just got back to Charlottesville, well, not back to Charlottesville, I just moved back here to Virginia from, I was in Silicon Valley for about 11 years. And there was a meetup group in San Francisco, I don't think it was through meetup.com, but it was like this. And I know, you got a lot of interest like right off the bat. It seems like not surprisingly in the topic. And this group this was when cloud and DevOps, it wasn't even called DevOps then. It was all brand new stuff. And so you had a lot of people with a lot of different skill levels and a lot of different goals. And one thing that this meetup group did that was really beneficial and it really created a lot of relationships that went on. People started companies together and all kinds of stuff. They did a pretty structured, what do they call them? Breakout meetups.
Yeah.
So, there would be an announcement that, we're going to break this night off and it's going to be, DevSecOps night. It's going to be all about security. And so, this guy is going to be here, he's the DevSecOps guy, he's going to talk about this. Somebody from Netflix is going to come in and, anybody that wants to do this, 10, 15 people signed up, great, they would do it and find a place for it and all that kind of stuff. If this thing starts to get big, that might be an interesting way to. We did a business night where we would have VCs come in and people would basically show up and say, is there a business model? Things like that. So the opportunity to break out, and let people kind of with a topic this large, that might be an idea, like you said.
We thought some thoughts like async kind of small group projects
Yeah.
or workshops. Like I'm personally interested in like learning more about NAN, which is like a workflow orchestration system. And once maybe I get a little bit more into it, maybe have a little session.
Yeah.
Probably like a one day, like one evening. Could be completely remote, could be in person, probably remote. That would work better in that context. But I could see, anything, 1 to maybe 8 people,
Yeah.
structured groups, and then the only thing I'm really interested in is like, just share back what you learned.
Right.
It could be like a one-time thing, it could be a perpetual, project that you iterate on for a little while. Whatever it is, just let us know what you're doing and share back what you experienced.
Yeah. Well, the topic is broad. Easy for a single form thing to drift around a lot.
I think we got like a wide variety. Some of us are technical, some of us are not.
Right.
The tools, accommodate both those scenarios quite well. And you get into the technical details where you can kind of work on the GUI layers of this and get some really great results.
Feels very familiar.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm interested in. I'm a hands-on learner, so I'm a software development background, never really had a background yet. But yeah, hands-on learner, so I'd like to do something like Kaggle or, join some of those like competitions, even if I have no chance of winning, like just to practice and kind of have that motivation.
Yeah.
That sounds very interesting.
Ignite.
What you said about, I didn't even think of that, but did you say trying to build one, maybe trying to create?
I've been so everyone, the book I'm interested in that I've been just learning by osmosis so far is building applications on top of foundation models.
Got it.
And so that's kind of my personal focus right now is, okay, I can vibe code or cursor code and it can use React and do stuff, but if we're making a call to a foundation model somewhere, that unlocks certain types of capabilities and use cases. Some are good use and appropriate, and some are bad and not a good reason to use LLM. But that's kind of what I want to do is all the API and tooling all around it, but the core is you're making a call to an LLM and getting benefit from that in some way.
If you had the whole application, like stack issue, that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's stuff all around it, but
Yep.
ultimately, and I have a couple toy examples that I'll probably demo at some point in the sequence. Not because they're world-changing applications, but that I can use it as a platform to, hey, here's this architecture that I tried. A couple of them I'm intentionally setting it up to try 4 different models and 5 different architectures, and just as practice to do the 5 different architecture, but also as a comparison to see, hey, what seems to be working better and more consistent and more accurate and so forth. So this is supposed to be, this is my goal for what, one of my sub goals for what this group could be is to do that. So that's, but again, there's room for a lot of focuses and a lot of breakouts. So that could be a breakout. But one way to approach that would be, hey, let's have a small group, let's pick an example of a task. Yeah, add a couple in mind and make sure other people do too, and just kind of tackle it together and see what we bump into. See how far we get along the learning curve through that exercise.
So it would be an example of what you're talking about. There's this app called AI, where you just take a picture of what you're eating and it just sends a picture to ChatGPT. ChatGPT tells you what the calories are, what the macros are. It's within like 20%, or like it's 80-something percent.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. And I think this is a good example where, let's see, I wish Michael was still here, because he would say, there's probably I'll go take a small detour. So there's a paradigm that some of you might have heard about, I think, by Andre Karpathy, of software 1.0, which is just if-then kind of algorithms, software 2.0, which is we've learned machine learning from data, but it's still a deterministic algorithm, and then software 3.0, which is an LLM, which is also 2.0, but there's a temperature parameter, is the secret sauce there, so that it's not always deterministic. So could that best be, so yes, you can do that by making an API call to OpenAI Vision and getting, or other vision models, and getting answers back, and then you would do, okay, here's my list of ingredients and estimated amount of grams and so forth, and then you're gonna send that off to somewhere else that's gonna do the lookup and figure out the calories, right? So could you do that all with 2.0, with, you know, just a vision thing, or do you need an LLM in the back of it or not? I think there's a gray area in some use cases that there's pros and cons. That's part of what I want to just get experience with is, so my answer right now personally is I'm just going to use the 3.0 or the LLM model just because I want to practice and get the skill, but it might, I always have in the back of my mind, that might not actually be the best approach if I really wanted to solve this problem for real. Does that answer your question? So I guess the answer would be yes. If we defined that as a group project and said, here's what we want to accomplish, and let's try an LLM-based approach, then yeah, let's all plug away and figure out the right architecture and the right models and see how far we get.
Yeah,
I think that'd be great.
I think it depends on the task. The way you were saying, the differentiating between 2 and 3 is the temperature, and the fact that the 3 models aren't necessarily deterministic. For something like tracking your calories, it doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, it's okay. Like it's almost as though the 3 is, with that little bit of imperfection, it's just as good as the 2, which actually got it like pretty much exactly right.
Well,
Yeah.
kinda. Like, there's a big difference between, you know, like, okay, we have, you know, 30 grams of protein here and 29 grams of protein there, versus, you know, I'm going to miss like an entire category because, like, you know, I make mistakes and I sometimes get things wrong. Like, there's degrees of accuracy that you have to kind of account for.
And as a diabetic, I can see that would be a little sweet. For a casual, like, oh, how many calories are in a gallon of, you know, macaroni and cheese? You know, but if it's gonna be a real, you know, people's health depend on it, it's deterministic issue starts to become problematic.
Yeah, sure. For this specific issue, this was just a GPT wrapper, and it was within 20% accuracy, which is what the food accuracy requirement is for the like the nutrition labels.
Yeah, the ACE.
Yeah. So in that case, it kind of.
Just out of curiosity, has anybody started to play around with the ChatGPT reasoning model that just got released?
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. That might be an interesting topic. Pretty fresh stuff.
So some software kind of blogs I've read is talk about the type of workflow, Owen, that you pointed out, where you've got a planning phase, you're using the LLM to generate a plan, and then you have an implementation phase. The reasoning models work well with sort of a planning phase, and then once you're doing implementation, now you fall back to the more pattern matching type models. So different models are for different use cases or different parts of your task or whatever. So that it's totally a mix and match. But I think you're right that there's different. These apply to different types of activities or use cases.
Yeah, the pipeline stuff here that's a big thing that kind of jumped out was, I guess, kind of interesting being able to start putting these guys together easily like that, just to experiment and tinker. It's good tinker box. It's cool model.
Okay, other what you want to get or how you want to proceed or.
Another topic into the mix. Anybody that's interested, just governance, policy, guardrails, just what are the real ethics, and how do we become good stewards of those ethics
Right.
For the purpose of protecting humanity. I know it sounds broad, but it's an important topic to me.
Yeah, I'm actively working on a project with the CSA on alignment and safety. So yeah, that's an interesting topic.
I'm just really like the number of use cases. Like, I feel like you can only really imagine what's in your own head, and
Yeah.
I see certain things in certain places, but I implemented a function calling solution for one of the products that my company runs, and it just cracked my brain open for how what I think the LLMs are doing, especially for your calorie counter example. As long as you force the thing to produce structured data when it gives data back to you, you can create so many easy deterministic things to build off of that structured schema. Like after it, you know, if it gives me back language, you're always going to be dealing with unstructured data. But if you can force it and squeeze it into structured data, the use cases are endless. And that's so the thing about the calorie counter thing is like, if you just tell it what foods are in the picture, like what actual individual elements, and you know, how big would you say, or how many grams each thing is, you force it to just spit out a JSON of every single one of those things, you run a sum, and you're done. Like, so it's kind of unbelievable that I just never even thought, like, God, I probably could have made that app last, September and tried to sell it somewhere. I just don't think of that. So, yeah, I think that the amount of use cases that we can throw on a screen like this is just going to explode things out. And I have a feeling that what I imagine could happen that'll make it really useful is I just wasn't even thinking to myself, oh, I have this creative, endeavor to want to go make a storybook. So I have a feeling there's going to be people who are like, I just want to publish my stuff. I have so many ideas for stories. And then there's going to be somebody else who's like, I want to make an app. And someone else is going to say, I want to do this. And I have a feeling that's kind of how I hope, the group will shard off into its
Talking about that, I kind of, so I use several AI, Copilot, Gemini, Perplexity, and I pretty much want to get into the beauty market scene and do e-commerce. So I set it a certain kind of structure for it, and I took the results from that, like phase one, then I threw it into another AI and kind of generated all that kind of stuff. So like what you were mentioning earlier, that people in the group would start doing that. Hey, I'm one of them. I started. So it is amazing though to see all the results. If you do structure it right, like how you're saying, bit by bit, layer by layer, that's how I asked it to command and do all that stuff. I'm not very tech savvy. I'm doing a career change. I'm new, so like I just like to mess around with stuff, see what the limits are. I even asked every AI, like, hey, what are you good at? What's your capabilities? What's your limit? And each of them are different. So I didn't know that. I was just kind of plug, play, whatever, until I found it out. And then I have it like on my internet, like, hey, Copilot's good at this. Hey, Gemini's good at this. Hey, Perplexity's good at this. And every use case is different. So.
We have a hand back here.
I guess kind of been what we're kind of looking for. I'm personally a very deeply technical person. My focus right now is in building these things.
In what things?
Building LLMs, more or less. So if anyone is interested in kind of a subgroup, I guess my most recent focus has been on embeddings. So kind of trying to make sense of how LLMs understand language and things. So that'd be, that's kind of what I'd be interested in doing if anyone else is.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We'll talk about it and figure out something. Makes sense.
So I'm kind of interested, I think, having someone give a talk, maybe not every time, but enough. It's really good just to be exposed to different ideas like Eugene was saying, because it's such a broad spectrum, and it's very creative. Still needs direction from a human, right, to be able to harness the tool, and so it's really good to see people either like tooling from DevOps or from a coding workflow, like how people are using it, and I think beneficial.
Yeah, one thought would be like we'd have like kind of just an open session and kind of collaborative vibe coding session, and then
Yeah.
like in this kind of context, and then from that you can either splinter off into groups or take what that was and go iterate on it.
So what I'm taking away, let me get feedback, is, so we do have, I think the speaker is good periodically to get everyone in the room at the same time and create this kind of, so we do have 2 speakers penciled in, or yeah, and then, so the next one, I think now we can announce it, our next date tentatively,
Yeah.
or 80%, closer to 80% of
Yeah, it's not 100%.
pretty locked in, is April 22nd.
Yeah, April 22nd.
And the speaker, we believe, will be John Berryman, who literally wrote the book on prompt engineering. And he has a full-time consultancy, I think. He used to live in Charlottesville, does not live here now, but he'll be back in town for the Pi Data Conference, which is previous to that. So he's given us, he said, oh, I can give a talk on A, B, C, or D. We'll probably put that in Slack and do like a little emoji vote and see what he wants to talk about, but I'm real excited about that. The next person, I won't say the name just yet, but I think he's pretty much, he also lived in Charlottesville, used to live here, but moved away, so he'll be sort of a remote face on the screen. But he is very much, I had a great conversation with him before he moved, and he's very much this use case guy where he's doing all these, the conversation I had with him kind of blew my mind. He's like, oh yeah, I use it to do this, and it's just all the creative and productive ways that he came up with. So I'm very excited about that as well.
Who was that?
Dylan Schaefer.
Yeah, Dylan Sheffer, Sheffer, used to live here, and he's agreed in principle, so I don't see why that wouldn't happen.
He works at an accessibility consultancy, and AI engineering job title, using AI to enable accessibility of.
But I think he kind of defined that. He was doing that before it was a thing. So he was at this company and just, but also personally, came up with all sorts of personal productivity.
Pretty interesting use cases.
His motto was, automate the suck out of my life. So he just tried to start automating everything, and then he started doing that at work also, and so it kind of transitioned into this role where it's more of a formal thing. So those are 2 we have on tap, and I think it's in line certainly with some of the things I'm hearing interested in. I imagine those. So we have one a little more than a month from now, and probably the next one again would be 4, 5, 6 weeks out. It seems to me the thing to do between now and, well, we had some posted, I don't know, you guys tell me if you want to, do we want to try and coalesce along any breakout activities tonight while we're in the room, or we can just do it in Slack the next week or 2? What do you guys think?
I'll be curious if anybody currently is interested in facilitating a workshop or some sort of async project. Whatever you want.
We're talking about a defined project where a group project along the lines.
95% accurate.
Whatever.
You build a random forest, hit all the engines.
Well, I'd like to comment on, that the AIs have different strengths, and I'm a consumer, and I do want to pay for one, but I'm not sure what. So it'd be interesting to take on a small project and have whatever people have in their pockets, and then compare the results. Because I don't see a lot of that. To see, what are the, in real life, the strengths and weaknesses? Who did a better job on the same assignment? Obviously, the prompting is going to generate some of that, but.
So I like where you're going, and that's, I may have mentioned that's with some of the toy projects I've been doing. I've been exploring different architectures. It's not just the model that underlies, it's the approach. So you can try and do it all in one big prompt. You can do a chain where it says, give me this intermediate result, turn that into structured data, and then run that through another LLM. So there's a lot, the variable space gets bigger, can get big.
One thing that
That'd be a cool workshop, just, what are the different approaches? Because it's wide open. It is an open world.
I think
here are the 10 most common approaches to extracting what you need from the model.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting talk.
I think I will probably demo at some point, maybe 3 months from now, And again, the product itself is not exciting and not solid changing the world, but just I'm intentionally trying to use it as a platform to try these different approaches, and it can be a survey of here's the different
That'd be great.
things and what they look like in practice and how it, because there's cost implications also.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you're making 2 calls versus 1.
One question I have, maybe somebody else in here can get out of my mental space. I worry that having a breakout or doing anything async as a team, I'm having my own problems trying to imagine. We're trying to create a small hackathon for my company, and they want to put like 3-4 people on a team and do it over 2 days. And I can't fathom how it's not individual. Like I have a hard time imagining how I could do things happen so fast. Like I can go into Replit and just tell it to start creating things, and it makes things so fast. And if I want the database to start being connected, it'll do it again so fast. I can do that. How am I going to ever team up with somebody and kind of keep track of how all of that stuff manifests as fast as it can? And I don't understand how to have a team work on an AI project. To be
Go
honest.
take a look at pair coding.
Well, pair coding I get from the perspective of doing it.
You can do round robin. I mean, like that. I've seen that done tons of times. Similar problems with DevOps. I mean, DevOps and you know, DevOps people are uniquely independent. You know, they're used to being lone wolves, and so team work like that, round robin or pair coding or you know whatever little neat thing you come up with. Whoever's got the stick types, you know, that's an interpersonal construct in many cases because you can really do everything yourself. You're used to it, so you need to create some kind of structure.
I think the scarier part is that these teams of 3 that is being proposed by this engineering manager.
Yeah.
It's a coder, it's a database guy, and it's a product-y SME thing.
Let the database dude feel some of your pain, and let whoever. I mean,
But I don't know how they're gonna feel each other's pain. Like this is what I mean. Like how do they? I don't know. I can't see it yet. I just can't.
I would love to do projects and kind of work this out and get practice and work together on a task. Because I've run into the same issue working in teams. It's like, well, we're all doing the same thing basically, so we're just doing 3 or 4 times the work depending on people.
Is there a space in Charlottesville that has? I mean, this is cool. This is a great space. Is there a space that has, I'm thinking benches where 20 people can sit and cooperate, with each other on? Is there any sort of anything like that?
The libraries.
3-notch.
What's that?
3-notch.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be 3
benches.
minutes.
I like that.
I'm not sure. I think your productivity.
Everything got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe LLMs can solve the Balmer Peak problem.
But depending on the size of the group, if it's 8 people, a conference room would work for that, right?
You do remote as well, right?
Yeah.
You can just do a big group Slack.
I'm at a common house, so like
Zoom
if 2
remote.
people want to show up.
I think teams of 1 is also completely fine. Like,
But I've had that issue. I can't see beyond a team of 1 with this technology. Like
It's depending on the project, right? If there's a front end and a back end component, then that would be a natural divide.
Maybe.
Well,
Potentially.
what is the goal of 3 people working together?
So we're just doing a hackathon. It's going to be our first company attempt to make stuff. Hackathons are just build stuff and show it, and if
Why
it's
3
got
people
value.
then? Why 3 people? So
Because there is a team of 5 subject matter experts that are very close. They work closely with our customers. We have our engineering front end team, and then we have our engineering back end team. And so we're kind of split one of each of the 3 teams.
These things are typically done to try to create connections between people that don't normally cooperate and team building and things like that. And the idea with a hackathon is you go come up with something cool, like the storybook thing. That's something you can see in a hackathon. Go build a robot. Whatever you want to do, you and your 3 colleagues just go do. But you have to come back at the end of the day or the 2 days or 3 days and show what you've done. So you're forced. There's no sort of dancing around it. You're being forced to work with a team, which in an ideal world or theoretically builds teamwork skills and helps people get to know each other better and things like that. So you don't have silos and so forth. So That's the idea. That's the idea.
It's a really good learning. If you learn a lot technically too, like if you're a technical person. It's
So
like,
in this scenario, is there one keyboard or three? It's a key question. Yeah.
3 people, 3 different places. They have to somehow figure out a way to align.
So in hackathons that I've been in before, that problem kind of always exists, where sometimes you have like 3 people behind one monitor, all just kind of talking about the same thing. And in some cases, you're kind of like, oh, I see, I have an idea what it is that we're going to do. And then you guys kind of just like do a little bit of division of labor. And then you go all just kind of work on the things like independently, and then you come back and sync again. So I think you get around that by planning just ahead of time. All right, what are we going to build? How are we going to build it? How are we going to architect it? Like, what things can we simplify? Because we're going to have like a day or 2 to kind of work on it. And then you guys are going to naturally just find like the things that everybody wants to do, or maybe some things that like some people really want to do, and one person is like, all right, I'll just do the rest. So like I would encourage you at the beginning to like try to find that. That'll make things a lot, like it'll feel a lot more natural that way.
Or go out for beers and do that planning before the hackathon actually goes on.
Yeah.
Get 2 or 3 buddies, go have beers, relax, socialize a little bit, know each other a bit, and decide what you're going to do, decide who's going to do what, who's good at what, who wants to learn what. If there's something you don't know about that that the database person or whatever knows, and you're like, hey, I'd love to know more about blah, and then you go in happy, knowing what you're going to do, and you've had some beer talk with it.
I think there's one critical piece though is that I think you were kind of getting into is sometimes you don't know, right? You kind of plan, but all plans don't always work out. So part of it is in real time kind of figuring out what we're doing next.
Yeah. 3 people behind a monitor isn't bad. Like it's just it's sometimes just a phase of it that you have to kind of like work through. That's okay.
It's definitely not natural. It's not natural, but it has benefits.
Yeah, I really do get the concept of being able to split work and plan. It's just the way AI does so much so fast that I'm trying to figure out how it's possible to split the work.
I guess it could expedite.
It does so much work.
Would you be willing to do a 15-minute presentation at one of these events on what happened?
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Yep.
Like what happened?
I will. I'll let you know.
I just did it all.
I'll have a sample of 5 too. I'll sample size of 5.
When is the hackathon?
Middle of May, I think.
All right.
Yeah, it's scheduled for Q2. It's got to happen in Q2.
You all just text to speech like into it, and
Right.
whatever happens, happens. Right?
Sam will summarize each team's
Exactly.
results and compare them.
We'll record it in Loom and send it up to one of those foundation models that tell us all about it.
Okay, any last thoughts, comments, questions?
Strong start. Thank you.
Okay.
Really
I'm on the Western Albemarle side. I wanted to throw that out. So if there's
Hey.
actually people who are close to over there, I wouldn't mind meeting at the Crozet Library.
So what I'll put out on Slack, if you're interested in a group project, I'm pointing at you. If you're interested in a group project, basically someone needs to be the champion for each one of these sub initiatives. Okay, so I'm going to champion. Hey, who wants to read this book together with me? Otherwise, I have to do it myself. And I'll get a critical mass of 3 or 4 people or 5 that want to do it, or I won't. If you want to say, let's do a project with this kind of scope and this kind of time commitment, somebody has to kind of champion that and say, here's what I have in mind, who wants to join me? And I envision, tell me, and everyone else tell me what you think. These will all just be threads within the channel so that other people have visibility. The trade-off is there's just more activity to parse through, but I'd rather have the visibility than have the project team go do a little, DM subgroup. I'd rather just have them have a thread somewhere and we can see what's going on. So that's the model that I would suggest or encourage.
Yeah, we can create some channels
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
And we also have a Git log that we can give people access to and share through that as well.
As long as I should write a tool to watch all the streams and decide what I'm interested in.
There you go. Let's start listening. All right, so that's your next step. So the next steps are meeting almost certainly, or likely on April 22nd. Between now and then, let's see what kind of groups we can spawn off, and maybe we'll have even some reports back as part 2 of that meeting.
Try to get my skills up. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just, we can just have a impromptu session and we can talk through maybe some options. Maybe you need something automated and help you can put together and make it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a space that can seat at a large table, actually 2 tables about 8 to 10 each. Like table. So if you guys want to use that space for one of these things, just sync up with me. I'm not on the Slack yet.
There is at least one conference room here also, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
With James on the.
I've got that, Vault, Virginia, there's actually even a space in the basement that if things evolve to the extent that we had a lot of activity.
Yo, man, are you down there? Most of the old room.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
All right, thanks everybody. Again,
And if anybody's interested, there's DuckDuckGo shirts. Feel free to grab one. Or leftover swag from B camp.
Yeah.